library. Satu is working as an information specialist in the group of people maintaining the General Finnish Ontology, and is going to tell us about how the linking of this General Finnish Ontology to the Library of Congress subject headings took place in order to improve subject access.
Yes, thank you for the introduction, and hello everybody. I'm very happy and excited to be here. This is my first ever SWIB. So I'm here with Osma, my colleague, to share our experiences from trying to improve subject access by linking concept schemes together. So to start with, I'd like to say just a few words on the whole notion of better subject access, as obviously that can mean many different things in different situations and for different people. But for our library, the aspects of it that we are particularly interested in are, well, firstly, the chance to eliminate certain workflows that are quite redundant. We are a country that has two national languages, Finnish and Swedish. It means that we have to maintain two separate general thesauruses and also do subject annotations twice using both of them. And secondly, we'd like to find new ways to reuse metadata that is already out there. We copy a lot of records, and they often come with already existing LCSH headings. And we'd like to find ways to maybe do something a bit more exciting with them, more than just to make the choice of whether to copy them into our databases or to discard them completely. So just to give you a view of what we are dealing with, this is a typical record from our database. As you can see, it has subject headings from 3 different concept schemes, and they all say pretty much the same thing. So as a starting point, we had the General Finnish Thesaurus, YSA, which has been developed since the 80s and used mainly for book indexing in libraries. And it holds currently over 30,000 terms, and it is monolingual, only in Finnish, but it does have a Swedish equivalent, Allers. So what we did was we reconstructed YSA into a machine-readable and multilingual YSO, where, as you can probably guess, the O stands for ontology. And YSO holds trilingual terms for all the concepts in Finnish, Swedish, and English, and this was accomplished by merging first the YSA and Allers together, and then translating it into English. So the concepts of YSO are very much a compromise between the Finnish and the Swedish terms, as YSA and Allers were not completely identical, although I think they were pretty much as close as you can get while you are still operating with two separate languages. And furthermore, it has links to the Library of Congress subject headings whenever there was a good match available there. So just to quickly show you our browsing interface, on the left-hand side you can see there's a complete top-down hierarchy, and as the browsing language here is set to English, it shows clairvoyance as the preferred term, and the Finnish and Swedish equivalents are at the in other languages section. It has a URI that identifies the concept, and at the bottom you can see there's the link to LCSH. And when you click on that, it takes you to their browsing interface. So the English translation and the mapping, they were done simultaneously and they were done both manually. Both tasks, the mapping and the translation, they sort of involve the same initial steps where you have to try to sort of specify the meaning of each concept and its scope of use. So if you're going to do either one of these tasks manually, you can just as well do both of them because they're pretty straightforward to do together. And also by consulting LCSH, we were able to choose translations that are more functional, as it gave a sort of clear view on how the concepts are understood and how they're used in a context that is English speaking. And for the 30,000 concepts, it took about 2 person years, but that included everything from the initial planning phase to the finish line. The ideal workflow seemed to set somewhere between 50 and 100 concepts per day, depending on how difficult the ones were that you were dealing on each particular day. And we were able to reach a 44% mapping percentage to LCSH, which actually it's quite good accomplishment for concept schemes that cover such different language spheres. And as YSO grows, it grows about 600 to 700 concepts per year. We keep all the language versions up to date and the mappings as well. Well, then just a few words about language differences. Everyone who has ever studied a foreign language would probably know that it's often impossible to give a word-for-word translation, as languages don't have the same words. And you can take 2 words from 2 languages that can seem to mean the same thing and be completely identical. They can actually turn out to be only just like partially overlapping or sort of similar, but used in completely different contexts or having different kind of scopes. So what kind of implications does this have when you try to translate a controlled vocabulary, which pretty much relies on the fact that all the concepts are pinned down to a very specific meaning, and you want to convey that meaning identically across all the language versions. The situation is actually not this bad. This is a bit of an overstatement, but yeah, it's not wrong. We use ma a lot. But usually the fact that YSO is founded on Finnish concepts and the Finnish cultural sphere, it's not really a problem. Most of them, the vast majority, it's pretty straightforward to translate. But that said, there are some concepts that may not exist at all outside of Finland or maybe outside of Scandinavia. These are often occupational titles. They can be names of institutions, structures of society, historical concepts. So with these, we have to try to find a solution that somehow sort of explains the core meaning of the concept. Or we can use the Finnish term as a loan term in the same way that pizza is known as pizza all over the world, although it is an Italian word. And of course, we can also add scope notes and definitions that further sort of narrow down the scope of each concept. Also, there are some that are really quite international in meaning, but they've been conceptualized from the point of view of Finnish or Swedish language. Like, for example, in Finnish, we have 2 terms that would both translate into English as dreams. The other one is used for the dreams you have when you're sleeping. The second one is the dreams you have when you dream of being rich and famous and conquering the world. So when we translate this into English, we have to add additional qualifiers that further narrow down the scope of the English term. And there is a constant struggle of trying to find a sort of good balance between precision and functionality. We have a term that would translate into English as Germanness or the quality of being German. That would be the precise way to say it, but it's not really functional or understandable. So we decided to instead call it German identity, which is it's a good equivalent for most use cases, but not for all. So we lose some in precision, but we gain a lot in functionality. So these are the things you have to think about all the time. Then on to the mappings. YSO and LCSH have both been constructed for the same purpose. They're meant to be used for the indexing of library materials. But that said, they have a lot of very significant differences between them. One of them is hierarchy. We have a complete top-down hierarchy. LCSH has a different approach. YSO only has general concepts that are meant to be used independently. LCSH has, they support precoordination and subdivisions. For those of you who don't know, it means that there is a topical term that is the sort of main word in indexing, and it can be complemented with subdivisions, but the subdivisions cannot be used independently, only together with a topical term. So we don't have this kind of division between our concepts. And furthermore, they have been built from different cultural and different geographical viewpoints, and of course they follow different principles and different practices, and they have their own history. So the struggle is to try to define a sufficient level of equivalence and then just keep it as consistent as possible. And there is a necessity to accept a certain amount of fuzziness as the meanings, as said before, they're often not completely symmetrical across languages. So in order to try to overcome some of the structural differences, we've decided to use a combination of 3 different SCOS properties. Out of these 3, close match is the one that is by far the most used. It's used whenever there's a pretty obvious match, but as it doesn't state that the concepts are exactly equal, only that they are a close match, it can stand quite a bit of fuzziness. So, for example, the dreams example from the previous slides could be mapped with a close match property to the just obviously one dreams concept that LCSH holds. Narrow match is used mainly when there is a good semantic match, but the LCSH concept is subdivision, meaning that it has a more narrow scope of use. It cannot be used independently. And the last one is broad match, which is used when we have separate concepts that have been treated as a compound in LCSH. Then on to reuse potential, or the reasons why we are doing this. LCSH is used globally and widely, and like mentioned, we get a lot of copied records that already have LCSH headings. We'd like to be able to automatically or semi-automatically convert them into YSO concepts. But there is a problem of size. We have 30,000 concepts. LCSH has, I think, 340 maybe thousand headings. So with our 44% mapping rate, we can only get a fraction of the whole LCSH. It's less than 5%. So is there a point in doing this? We know from our Thesaurus, which we've used since the 80s, that some concepts tend to be used all the time. Some maybe just once or twice in their whole existence. So when we don't look at the whole LCSH, but focus on the concepts that are used the most, we took a sample of 100 most used LCSH concepts from our own search service and checked the mappings, and turned out that this way we can get a 69% mapping rate. You can see the top 5 concepts here. History is number 1 with a huge gap to number 2, which is history and criticism, and history is the number 1 concept in our Thesaurus as well, so it is a popular topic. Furthermore, when you don't look at the individual mappings, but more of the records that hold the mappings. We did a test where we took a random 1% sample of records from our metadata repository and extracted all the Mark 650 fields that held LCSH headings, looked up their URIs, and checked whether they had mappings to YSO. So this way, it turned out that almost half of the LCSH indexing that's already out there could indeed be converted into YSO, and also 2/3 of the records that have LCSH indexing would get at least one YSO concept in an automatic conversion. And then just a quick word about our future plans. Wikidata has been mentioned a lot during the past few days. We as well are currently mapping the top 5,000 or 6,000 YSO concepts to Wikidata. And as LCSH and Wikidata have already been mapped together, we can use our LCSH mappings to get potential matches automatically and then just do their checking manually and save a lot of time there. And we also have some previous experience of working with Wikidata as we have a subset of YSO called YSO Places. It is a machine-readable place name scheme, and we already linked that to Wikidata, I think, last year. And I'd just like to show you, this is again a screenshot of our browsing interface. We have over 50 place names from Germany, but we have no Bonn. So here's Hamburg instead. We probably don't have any materials about Bonn in our library. I don't know what's the problem. But yeah, you can see the link to Wikidata there. And whenever there is a Wikipedia article relating to that Wikidata link, we constructed a little widget that can show the Wikipedia article right there in the browsing interface. And this is something we just published maybe last week or so, or something like that. So yeah, we're really happy about this, and probably this is something we would like to add to the more general YSO as well once we get the Wikidata mapping sorted. But yeah, that's all. Just, yep. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks. If you're interested in the topic and want to dig a bit deeper, there's a link to an article we published last year, and it goes, it elaborates this topic quite a bit, so that's more information available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Satu. That was very inspiring. Are there questions for Satu? There are.
Yeah, I was curious, since you noted the issue of LCSH subdivisions that don't exist independently, that cause problems in mapping. Have you considered using FAST, mapping to faceted authority subject terminology, which is derived from LCSH, but you don't have those subdivisions and each one have an identifier?
I don't think we have talked about that. I don't know, does Osma have any special secret information on it?
I don't know if it's secret. I think we've maybe toyed around it in a discussion, but never looked really deeply into doing that, because it's still the case that we have LCSH metadata in the records, so I'm not sure how it would work. We would have to convert first to FAST, and then maybe that's doable, but yeah, I think that's a good idea to explore.
Hi, it's a lot of speaking about Wikidata. The place you have connected, for me that's normal Wikidata.
Yeah.
There is a new project called Lexeme, where they are going to add all the words in all languages, in all different forms. Have you been looking into integrating with? It's rather new. I think it started in May or something like that.
To my knowledge, no. This was new information to me.
Are there more questions? Yes.
Thank you. It's quite related to what he asked.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that work on this project, they need to be fluent in 3 languages, and you have like a week every year to add the new concepts. So with everything involved, it's like one person working there needs to be able to do this every year. So like the institution has to like, you know, have the skills, have the procedures and everything. And it seems like you need really good specialists for that. So great that you have them.
Yeah, we have an English translator and we have a Swedish translator on board in the project. But I think it could be outsourced as well if you don't have that kind of in-house knowledge. But yeah, you do need to know the languages, or someone does.
Have you been in discussions with folks at LC to maybe collaborate on making these connections?
Sorry, what was that?
With Library of Congress, have you had conversations with Library of Congress about making the connections or having them help if they have a Finnish cataloger and can help?
Yeah, we've been talking with LCSH about whether they'd be interested in publishing our mappings on their browsing interface, and the discussion is ongoing. They were interested, yes.
One final question.
So having identified the 69% that were mapped in the top 100, are you tempted to try and get the other 31% mapped?
It would be a nice, yeah, it would be lovely, but I think because of the language differences, it would be impossible. We have things that they don't have in LCSH and they probably don't want to add them. We're happy with this, yeah.
Okay, then thanks again.
Thank you.